Yeah. So when I when I had my own child, I poured all of that reserved love into my son, and the little parts that I had in reservation, because I knew that I would be I would not always be there for the kids that I was a nanny for. I I poured into my son, and my son never disobeyed me. He knew how much I loved him, and all he wanted to do was make me happy. He didn't ever act out because um, he never had a cause to. He was one of the most happy. He was always laughing. He was full of life. He was extremely intelligent, very fast moving, very bonded to me, trusting, and zero behavior problems, not even the normal ones that normal kids have. And I believe that that's a testimony to the kind of parenting that I was doing. And I don't think that I could have done that had I not had all this experience with other people's kids first. But by the time I'd done all of this work with other people's kids and learned some things, I had so much patience, and I knew a few tricks and things to do, which really helped him to feel very self-confident and active. We went on play dates, we went outside all the time, interacted with other kids. He was full of life and love and laughter. And I think the most striking thing that I noticed was that he knew the love was stronger than fear, and he wanted to obey me and do what was right out of his love for me, not because he feared me. And I think that sometimes fear becomes a substitute for love. If you don't gain the trust of a child and have enough time with them in the way that can foster such an incredible deep bond and loving connection, that sometimes when behavior problems arise, which sometimes is due to lack of attention that the child feels, it becomes more of a game for parents to exert the idea of fear. If you don't obey me, you're going to get spanked. If you don't do this, you're going to get this. So it becomes a vicious cycle, I think. And I think that love is much stronger and more powerful. And I think it's very hard to do well in some ways, by action, because it's hard to always know what to do. And I can only say that I knew so much because I had worked for so many years with kids. So not only was it extremely traumatic for this country to do what they did to me because of all of that effort and all of my skills and work, it was more traumatic for my son than it would have been for some kids, because he wasn't the kid that was raised, to play by himself while his mom cleaned the whole house. He had my undivided attention. If I cleaned the house, which I did, and washed the dishes, I put a chair up next to me and let him clean with me. Before he was able to clean, I had his bassinet right there up on the counter facing me so he could see me. And if he wasn't, when he was older, he wanted to help, so then I would let him help a little bit and he could stand right there next to me. And then I only did a little bit at a time and helped him pick up after himself. And then I did most of my cleaning at night after he was asleep. And the rest of the time, he had a fully engaged person with him, and he played on his own. I mean, I wasn't smothering him, but I always had an eye on him. And so anyway, the only time that I was not sitting with him or engaged with him the entire time was once we were both being tortured, and I was on my blog trying to write about how we were being tortured. And I had my son sit on the couch and he watched a short movie. It was about 30 minutes or less. like a Barney show, like a little short 30-minute segment of something. While I typed, I typed over 60 words a minute, so I was able to get a lot done in that time, to try to get attention brought to the fact that there were some really weird things going on by then. So when my son and I practiced attachment parenting, which is the form and philosophy of parenting that I had decided on, which meant we co-slept together, which meant I didn't put him in his own little bed, which meant that from the time he was an infant and brought home from the hospital, he slept next to me, and if he wanted to eat, I was right there, and I breastfed him. That kind of attachment parenting made it severely, made it very traumatic for then the state to abruptly do what they did to him. And I want to know when my son and I are going to be compensated. And, I said that to my mother today. She's like, they're never going to compensate. Or she said something about, like, they don't owe you anything. And she just says what she has to say. If I have implants, which I do, and people are watching and listening all the time, what else is my mother going to say? And she said, you did this to yourself, and she, the whole time, I know that she's not saying that she doesn't believe that. So, I might have to turn on a light in a minute. It's getting darker. Or the light all of a sudden got very dark with this camera. So anyway, I might just switch to my other scarf thing because now I've warmed up. But anyway, as I was saying, I said something about that to my mom, and she said that, and I said no. I said they have ruined my life. I said from the time that they obstructed my travel and had me blocked from college, and then all the other things that this country has done, my son and I deserve to be compensated, and I expect that. So I don't expect to continue to be tortured. I expect compensation for both of us, and I expect my son to be returned to me. So then I told my mom today, I said, how can you say, I said, are you always going to deny that this is going on, or that these things have happened? And I said, how can you say that nothing's going on? But of course, I've got microchips, so that's why she says what the things she has to say. And then I said, what happened to me? I said, I haven't asked you yet, because I haven't until today. And it's the 22nd now of September. It's the first time I've ever asked them, what happened in 1977 that the government destroyed records over? And she said, you were 3 years old. She said, nothing. She said, what do you mean? She says, I don't believe it. And I told her, I said, I have something that says that there were documents, government documents, destroyed in 1977 that have to do with me. And I said, so what happened to me in 1977 or before that? And she said, you were 3. And I said, well, yeah, so if they destroyed these records in 1977, then maybe from the time I was an infant, when I was an infant to the time I was 3 years old, what happened? And she said she didn't believe it. And I said, well, you have to know, because if the government has a record on it that they're wanting to destroy, it has to be a big deal. And she kept saying she didn't believe it. She didn't believe that I had such a letter, and that such a thing had been done. And I said, I've already put it online for people to see, and I've taken a picture of it, put it online. So I said, I'll bring it over to you, and so you can see it for yourself. But I was saying to her that I wanted to know what the CIA had done, because I believe that that government document came from the CIA. Because the FBI was saying they just were not going to duplicate records that came to them from another government agency. And And then she said, I don't believe it. And I said, well, I said the FBI sent this. I said, do you think the FBI would lie? Very apropos, my mother said nothing. I heard silence from all sides of the door. And that's true. The FBI would lie about a lot of things. But they're not going to lie about something like a record from 1977 to be suggestive of some kind of a problem or something. I mean, the FBI has been covering things up and concealing things, and they have been lying. So why would they suddenly just include this little note of a destroyed record from 1977? I mean, it doesn't seem like something that they would make up. So I told her that I would give her a copy of that and email it to her. But yes, the government owes us a lot of money. They owe my son a lot of money, and I would expect somebody to start thinking about compensation and settlement terms and agreements. So all of that is just to explain why I was saying that it was such a big deal for them to take my son from me and do what they did. Because like I say, it is a big deal for anyone, but it was especially traumatic for me and my son in the sense of our bonding not being traditional American bonding, and also all of the experience and work that I had, with, and, service that I did to federal agents and government employees prior to them then stealing my son from me and defaming me.